Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Baby and Them, where we talk about all things birthing and parenting beyond the binary. My name is Laura Beth Lima. I go by they, she pronouns. I'm very excited to be here today with Duplan, who goes by he, him, and will tell you more about himself. So I'm so excited to have this conversation. Thank you for being here. Tell us about you. My first question is, how would you introduce yourself? What do you want folks to know about you? And yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It's really nice to connect with other queer people of color who are involved in parenting. And but yeah, I teach post-colonial literature at Bennington College, which is also where I went to college. And so that's in southern Vermont, and I live nearby, just over the border in Western Massachusetts, with my two doggos. And I also publish poetry and essays. Um, yeah, that's kind of the majority of. There's some other stuff, but it's pretty good.
Sounds like a lovely life. Sounds beautiful. And I guess I wanted to kick it off by asking you, how would you define family? What does family mean to you? Who's in your family? What is that construct for you?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I definitely ascribe to this very, I think, common idea within queer communities of chosen family. And, um, our family is made up of the people who show up consistently in our lives across time and show up in a way that we appreciate, and the people that we show up for, vice versa. And so I would say that, yeah, a lot of my family is made up of just kind of like other really beautiful people who are not my birth family. And then, more recently in the last few years, I've also sort of reconnected with my birth family. And so my mom and dad and my stepmom are a bit more present in my life as well, in addition to, yeah, my chosen fam. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm so excited to hear that for you, if that feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's been really nice.
That's great. And so, yeah, thank you for answering that. And I definitely kind of vibe with that idea of chosen family, right? It's not just who you're born into, but also those that we take along with us who are dear and near and show up in all the nuanced ways that we really need. And speaking of family, I guess I wanted to ask you, did you always know that you wanted to be a parent? How did that come
Mm.
about, that decision for you?
Yeah, I think maybe not always, but definitely, let's see, I'm 30. So I mean, I think definitely for the last maybe almost 10 years, I've wanted to parent. And um I think also for probably that same amount of time, though, I have known that I didn't want to um uh like make a person. Yeah. And I was like,
Yeah,
what's
that's
the
not for
way of
everybody.
talking about that? Yeah, I was like, and and I don't know. I mean, I do know why. There's lots of reasons why, and I'm happy to kind of share them. But yeah, I think parenting and mentoring have shared similar spaces in my mind, and I think because I didn't have such a close relationship with my birth family growing up, that I think the work that mentors can do in one's life has always just been like so huge, and I've always yeah, wanted to um, be able to do that for other young people, which is part of why I love, teaching. Yeah, it's kind of a similar role. Yeah.
Yeah, teaching definitely has that special place. And it's so nice to have so many people that come into your life that
Hmm.
you get to just, connect with. And I always tell my students, which I heard from another educator that I work with, that I'll be in your life as long as you want me to be in your life, right?
Yeah.
A mentor.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about parenting is that, you get to take that for a lifelong journey
Right.
in a way that's more connected to your family unit that you're creating. And
Yeah.
so I wonder, what are you most excited about to be a parent? You mentioned, you didn't want to carry for specific reasons. Also, if you'd be comfortable sharing, I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of folks would love to know if they're kind of in the same thought process.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I don't know why I've always felt a lot more connected to adoption, like even like something like surrogacy has never, like certainly not with my own body. I've never wanted to make a person, but also like with someone else's body, you know. And
Like the whole process is
yeah.
like,
And I think that I've shared around this, but there's been a lot of rupture in my family, within my like nuclear family unit, like me, between my, mother and father and stepmother. There's been rupture because of death and suicidality in the larger family. And I think that as uh, Haitian people, we just go through a lot of generational trauma that doesn't necessarily get processed before it gets kind of passed on through harm. And so I think there's this way that like my way of dealing with that rupture is to just kind of build it in. And adoptees are have to deal with family rupture forever, and so there's this way that like mm, the specialness of family, and however we define that, um, is is always being contrasted with like the way that family can break down and go wrong and rupture and break. And um, I think, yeah, for whatever reason, the way that like my mind or my healing has worked, that like allowing that to take up a lot of space, um, and be kind of like the primary way that this new family has come together, um, yeah, has felt maybe like the most healing way to think about making a family. Yeah, yeah,
thank you for sharing and, for being so vulnerable about generational trauma. I think a lot of people can relate to that and
yeah,
they might not necessarily be open about it. So I really appreciate you being vulnerable, but it really is, all of our work, right? We all inherit, some of us to a greater degree than others, but it's really beautiful to hear how that has kind of, seeped into your thinking of what parenthood could be for you.
yeah,
And that could be a healing process, especially around adoption, because I know a lot of people in my life who have been adopted, and there's certainly a lot of anger and trauma and
yeah,
feelings and healing, even alongside the appreciation that goes along with it. And
yeah,
being a person who can kind of relate to it, although you still have your family to a degree, right? But you've experienced loss in that way. And I just feel like you'll be such an excellent like guiding force as a mentor and being able to support someone, because healing is not just like, let's go to therapy, right? It's
yeah,
work and in community and it's in love and it's with grace and it's all those things. So I just think that's such a beautiful way to embark on your parenthood. Um, and I'm kind of wondering, you mentioned that adoption is kind of the route you're taking. How's it going for you so far? More on like, I guess, like a logistical side.
yeah, sure. Yeah, I was talking to some friends of mine who recently had a baby, and uh just talking about like the relative timelines of these things, and what we spend our time doing during the preparation, and so different. And obviously you just went through this, and so better than I do. But like, yeah, my like lead up or preparation has been so logistical and like full of like almost bureaucratic processes of um, background checking and yeah, kind of getting things in alignment with the state of Massachusetts. But there's still like a real I don't know, joy or mystery to some of this stuff. Like I bought a house in preparation for this whole thing, like before I even started. And it was like, when I was going through like closing on the house, I was like, well, you better be real sure because
Because you just want a house.
you're gonna spend $300,000 on this idea, so you better like it.
Now you better like it.
Because now you have a mortgage. So like um so yeah, it's been like, yeah, just full of like the process of buying a house is like weird, and nothing could have prepared me for that. So it's just been a lot of yeah, kind of interesting and strange bureaucratic processes, along with just kind of all of the emotional processing and trying to learn um, from others who've been through this process and learn from adoptees. And I right now I'm going through a 10-week class that the Department of Children and Families uh, facilitates. It's like a mandatory 10-week class. And it's not really a parenting class. It's more like, here's how foster care and adoption work, and here's some of the experiences that you might expect that young people in foster care have gone through, and um, how that might show up in their behavior, and so it's like really difficult material, and I would say there's nothing really too joyful about it, but uh, even that has felt yeah, I don't, not that I like crave or desire joy, like there's a different kind of joy, but I feel like the way like societally that we think about starting a family is like, oh, so joyful, amazing, it's like, oof, yeah, I'm sure there will be moments of joy, but that's not been the dominant flavor so far. Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad that you're bringing that up because, certainly even, there's many ways to have a child, right? And I feel like there's degrees of difficulty, but at the end, everyone just kind of it's not really based on any factors. It's kind of like luck or chance, right? Because there's so many health implications, class implications, like all the red tape, all these things that apply to different factors. There's so many variables. And just being a person who carried, but also queer, and like needing to think about like getting a donor and all those different kind of things. I feel like there's always something that makes it logistical and that's
Yes.
difficult,
Right. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like again, like we all have different degrees of it. So like not minimizing anyone's experience, but just to say that we can all relate the difficulty, but there's this like hyper excitement about the parenting industrial complex of like buy this stuff, make a
Yeah.
baby. Like, so it's easy to fall into the
Yeah.
trap like that's the story, but
Yeah.
even like in the easiest cases there's still logistical stuff, and that is not like it, like
Yeah.
even in my experience, like it's like, when are you ovulating, like
Yeah.
did you keep
Yeah.
the sperm warm, like there's
Right.
just like
Yeah.
very practical, annoying things. Are you taking time off of work? Like, or some
Yeah.
people, like, how are you funding this? Right. So I
Mm-hmm.
really appreciate you bringing in the difficulty, which kind of like segues into my next question. We're queer people, we have a different reality, right? And some would argue even more challenging experiences as a result of potential discrimination. I'm wondering if any of that has come up for you, or just like how are you navigating this as a queer person, and kind of like any cautionary tales. I'm sure there's a lot of like red tape around this. So is there anything that you've experienced you're like open to sharing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I have, again, I never wanted to. carry a baby, but I know there are other transmasculine people in my life who have carried or are thinking about carrying. And and I think that that's incredible. Like I'm like in awe of that. And um and also I'm like I want to create some kind of shield around them for 9 months so that they don't have to experience anything, like it's like, oh man, wow, like what a I mean, all people who are carrying children are very vulnerable in this way, but like, I don't know, thinking about people who don't look like people who are supposed to be carrying. But I don't know. I think so far that I've been pretty, things have been fairly uneventful. I think the main thing is that I was talking to someone else earlier today who is a Black gay man, single dad, single adoptive dad, also an adoptee. And we were just talking about how there's really not a lot of resources for Black, single, gay, adoptive dads. And and so just like and then if you add being trans on top, it's like the literature just kind of continues to dwindle, and the supports that are available um, aren't just, they're not that many. So that's my main cautionary tale, is like the person I was talking to was saying how he just kind of has had to forge ahead on his own on a lot of these things. And um, it feels similar to that. And it's why I'm like grateful for this conversation and that you reached out to me. I was like, all right, you know, queer community showing up. Let's do
it. Let's fill in those
it.
gaps. We're here. We're here.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, I hear that because, again, not to take away from any experiences, but choosing to parent beyond the binary and just saying, like, hey, I'm going to use they, them pronouns till my child can communicate.
Yeah.
I had no idea how difficult that would
Oh,
be.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I really thought, okay, there's got to be resources out there, right? Like people have done gender creative, like all kinds of gender free. There's lots
Yeah.
of models I had researched, but just the amount of pushback that you receive is wild. Of course, there are people who just like get it, and that's beautiful. But I think the hardest thing was there really were a lack of resources. And so, of course, that's why I started this series. But now that we've gotten a few done, I realize it's not just about, the way that we're parenting, whether it's pronouns or not, but it's also the variety of experiences, right?
Mhm.
Because as queer folks, the whole point is that we're creating identity spaces that are real and have always existed, but maybe haven't been given the space or the language to exist. And so
Yeah.
we're kind of part of that making right now
Yeah. Yeah.
in
Right.
history, and sharing our stories and experiences is enough, right?
Yeah.
And so I love having these conversations so that we can just like connect and build community and
Yeah.
share about how our experiences are the same and different. And that's really
Right.
cool.
Right.
So I'm
And
also really grateful to you.
yeah, well, and this conversation and the other conversations that you've had and will have are now like like those things get to live on just into the future, and be available for people. Yeah.
Yeah, like as Alicia said in the last episode prior to this one, she said, I want to be a good ancestor, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. That's so
I
cool.
really do hope that these will be helpful in real time, but also in the
Yeah.
future. Um, and so speaking of resources, I guess I wonder, in this time, what does support look like to you? Because I think that's like what you're saying, there's a lot of gaps in this and information and, the conversations that we're having is part of it, but what would it look like to you to get support in this area? And then if you're getting it, from your friends or your chosen family, um, how has that been going?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it because it I wonder, I'm curious what this was like for you, but the space between like thinking about this process to doing it, like there was a period of time where I was like starting to look at houses, like that period of time where I was like, I had told like my therapist and like maybe one other person that like, and like my landlord, because I was moving. And
That's
then
trust right there.
yeah,
Again, you better like this idea.
yeah. Right? Yeah, that text, I was like, well, yeah. And um, so getting to a place where I was like, the first step is that I have to tell my community that I'm doing this. And because I really want, I guess, when what I'm noticing in preparing to become a parent, and I wonder if you relate to this, that like all of the like missed desires from growing up are like, oh yeah, gotta like address this. And so one of them for me is that I felt like there wasn't really like a community around me. It's like my parents, our family, and then like any friends that I had, but there wasn't like, I don't know, adults around that I could relate to or talk to. And so I was like, I really would love for these young people to feel like they're part of a whole thing that's not just about me, And so telling my community was a big part of that. And then just having longer conversations with the people that I'm closest with about it. Um, and people have just been amazing and like, um, you know, without me even asking, have offered like the role that they would like to play, like, oh, I want to be like the fun uncle and I want to like teach them how to, do this or that. And I'm like, you got it. Like, that sounds amazing. And so just having a sense that there are other people there to um, step in. Obviously, if I like need help or I have to go somewhere or when I'm sick or something like that. But also just to be like other adults in their lives, And yeah. So
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 beautiful.
I feel like I even forgot your question. I've just been
No, that was it. Like, what does support look like to you? And it sounds
oh
like you're
yeah.
firmly that it's, having community and people around you that are not only going to nourish and heal and support you, but also this child. So kind of
Yeah.
like ushering this child into this life. Like you have a whole community of people here waiting for you. It's not just me and it's not
Yeah.
just a house.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's all this love right here. And
Right.
I love that everyone's reaching out with like their role and getting excited with you. And
Yeah.
that's family. That's community. It's so beautiful.
Totally. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
signing myself up. Play dates.
Yes. You got it. You got it. You're in. Likewise, yes, play dates, all
Yes.
the things. Yeah.
Go hang out in your backyard in Vermont and just
Yeah, come through.
in your
Oh my
Vermont.
God. So fun.
It's so funny.
I'm
So
excited for all of these like art babies.
yes. There's just so much joy there, right? Like this is
Yeah.
the joy part, right? Like their little smiley selves and their little free selves and
Yeah.
their outfits and exploring.
Yeah.
Just not to like bring it like down again, but like, somebody was like, how did you know that you wanted to do, non-binary parenting? Like, how did you know that it's like as violent as you're saying it's going to be and
Mm.
I have to like break it to people like it was violent to me.
Yeah.
Like being raised in the binary was as a non-binary person, as a queer person, was absolutely violent. Like I don't
Yeah.
need proof, I don't need an article, I don't need theory.
Yeah. Right.
It was to me. And so just allowing my child like the space to kind of do their own thing
Right.
is like the point,
Oh,
right?
I'm like, you say that and I feel sad that I didn't have that. I feel sad that like other young people don't have that. Just like the freedom to figure out how they want to exist in their bodies and relate to themselves without having to like deal with these strange constructs that are being like thrown at them. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like the very clear, like both spoken and unspoken, like codes of
Yes.
behavior, and then the shame that comes with it.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
parent, like being myself is synonymous with shame. So don't
Yes.
be yourself, right?
Right.
Like we're too young to be learning that, right? Like we should just be able to explore and be
Yeah.
loved, right? So yeah, I'm imagining all these free babies, which leads into my next question. Like, what kind of values are you thinking about with parenting and coming into that role as a parent? What's important to you when your child comes?
Yeah, that's really great. And I think that in a lot of the um kind of literature that I've been taking in around adoptees, like um a big thing that comes up and that I've been thinking about is like we already have a family, you know. Yeah, and so I almost sort of relate. I think some of the things that come up around like something like poly, like just sort of like a non-jealous form of love, or being part of someone's life without being like the only one that's part of someone's life. Um, Also feel like they relate to this, and is also why I desire like that community of like other adults. Like obviously I can be the main person, but um I'm very happy for there to be like other people in the picture that play a really big role as well, And yeah, I think just in the same way, like I really relate a lot to what you're describing in terms of like allowing your child to decide how they want to show up. And I think that was something that like my mother and to an extent my dad did really well for me growing up. And I appreciated the sense of um, freedom uh, in certain ways that I had with them, but it broke down in other ways, but in it like it was definitely there in certain ways. And so just wanting to continue the ethos of like learning about who this person wants to be, and kind of adapting around that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild how becoming a parent, we think a lot about our own childhoods, right? And
Yeah,
parents
completely.
well and like what they didn't. And we know that there's love and effort there, right? Like no shame, right? In different times. We're just in times where we can do it different. And it's really beautiful to see. So thank you for sharing those values. And I'm sort of curious, has this journey of, leading to parenthood impacted you in any way? I mean, I know it has, but I guess trick question, just there.
Imagine if I was like, no.
No,
I
hasn't
am the
changed me at
same.
all. I was born a perfect parent. But I guess like, have you grown in any particular
Yeah,
ways? I mean, I think it's just even wild how you shared about the process, like having to go through those classes, which I think are really good, right? Because
yeah.
it's not just like, what clothes are we buying for the kid, or
Right.
what formula are you using? It's like
Yeah.
what's the age range you're going for, but it's also, about literally like, the healing and surrounding of this process and going through the system, right? And the transition. So I wonder how, dealing with this kind of like systemic process has impacted you and just any of it.
Yeah, yeah. That's a really great question, and I think that there's just I think maybe the biggest internal shift is around just like thinking of myself as a parent. And yeah, I'm curious about that process for you, and like especially while carrying, right? And um, for for on my end, it's been like living in this house. It's like a three-bedroom house that I intend to fill. I intend to fill all the bedrooms, but right now I live here by myself. And so every day I kind of like wake up inside this project that I'm doing, uh, and so, but like, yeah, the internal shift of um being like a consistent presence for the rest of someone's life who is like guiding and just kind of holding that. I don't the feelings that I thought I would have around that are like not the ones that I'm having. Like I thought that I would be, sorry, my dog is barking. Can you hear them?
They sound very cute. It's not overbearing, I can still.
Okay. Um, but the I guess I thought I would be maybe feel like nervous or anxious about it, and I don't feel like that. It's more um like uh grounding, but in a way that brings up a lot of like grief. But there's no like anxiety, which is interesting to me. Um, yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely kind of like internal work for sure. And it's going to shift even more when the child comes because you have like
yeah.
the anticipation. Um, and then when they're here, um, you're going to be flooded with, oh my gosh, I love you. I want to take care of you. I have like a fierce sense of protecting you. Like, who am I? This like protective person. I didn't know I had that in me. But then whatever stuff you're dealing with is going to come up. And it's kind of like unfair because you can't do your homework for it because you don't know
You
what
don't
it
know
is
what
that's
it
going to come
is.
up. And I've heard people say this. But I was like, no, I'm gonna be fine, like too assured. But then definitely things came up. Like I like personally therapy hour, but
Let's do
but I
it.
guess like in relation to like my relationship to being an immigrant and the kind of like
Mm,
performative nature of, assimilation, I
mm,
have like a very like leaning tendency to fawning, right? So
mm,
like
mm.
people pleasing, and I have had to like really work against that, like the always smiling, like the sure, the
Yeah,
knee jerk
yeah,
yes, and then being like, wait,
yeah.
whoa, did I mean that kind of thing? And then having to like then like pedal back on like actually that didn't feel good, right? So like
Mhm.
I think a lot of my early childhood and like immigrating and then like being in exclusively white spaces taught me that I needed to kind of like fit, and other people's ideas of me mattered more than mine. And it took me many years
Mm,
to stop and pause and think about like how I feel before responding or being reactive or anything like that. And now I almost like over center myself, but it kind
mm,
of came
mm.
back up as a parent where
Yeah,
I would kind of just like go into like what other people said, and then I had to kind of immediately tell myself like, no, this is your child, this is how you are parenting, right? And nobody gets to tell you how to be this, that, or the other. There are many ways to parent it, like you are firmly the parent. And I had to like have those chats with myself, and kind of like stop the fawning. So that's just like my personal experience as like really deep like invasive thoughts, but I think like it plays out for everybody in a different way. So all I'm saying is it's kind of like whatever that deep thing you're working on, however it manifests, it will find its way into parenting. But that's not
yeah,
going to stop you from being like that soft, beautiful place for your child. It just means like you might need to spend a little extra time in therapy.
yeah. No, completely. And yeah, I when you were sharing that, it was making me think about how, um, as a parent, I feel like you would not only would you be receiving others' thoughts, ideas, critiques on the way that you parent, but then also who your child is and the way that they show up. And then your child might be coming to you to be like, is this okay or is this not okay? Or you might need to defend your child and from other people who are saying that what they're doing is not okay. So it's a lot of conflict potentially. Yeah.
And then also preparing yourself to teach your child how to defend themselves
Yeah. Wow.
while
Yeah.
somehow keeping their life magical and light.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
like jumping through
Yeah.
like hoops, at the same time. But yeah, I feel firmly that I want my child's childhood to be magical. I want
Yeah.
to shield them while also giving them critical thinking. So when they're at the age of like understanding problematic things about society, that they'll have the tools, but that they'll have them in other ways that are appropriate, right? So like
Yeah.
scaffolding, like how to defend yourself. Like maybe we're
Yeah.
starting at the playground, right? But then eventually you'll be able to apply those tools to say like this is who I am and I'm okay with it. Like
Yeah.
you don't get a say. So I think like the most important thing to me is that my child has agency,
Mhm.
and confidence in who they are. It doesn't mean they won't have insecure moments like all humans, but that they know firmly that their inner voice matters about them
Yes,
more than
that's so
anybody
great.
else.
Wow.
Like, so then
Yeah.
it doesn't even matter what I think, right? And so that they like feel
Hmm,
good
hmm.
about themselves. Because what I don't want is like a little me or a robot. I want a child who's like a free thinker.
Yeah, yeah, not a mini me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep them, whoever they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, parenting is so exciting, and I'm like really excited to see how it evolves for you and like all the chats
Thanks.
we'll have as like we go through the level ups, you know. But
Yep.
I wonder, like, my last question is, do you have any advice for parents who want to go through the process of adoption, particularly queer, particularly Black, or like people of color? Just any words of wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of different ways to do adoption. And there's a lot of information out there about adoption, but the best information that I've gotten so far has come from adoptees, and and it's where I've done the most learning. And so I think starting there, um, and then doing this, like kind of building community with other people who are engaged with parenting in one way or another, uh, is yeah, how I would advise other people, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
Eh.
Any last closing words? Also, where can the people find you if you have any
Oh,
socials?
yeah, they should find me on the gram. My handle is at on Duplan, AN dot DUPLAN. That's where I be at mostly.
Not where you be at.
That's where
Okay,
I
we
be
see you also in the
at.
classroom, in the art studio,
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
museum. Do you have any
Mainly on the
programs coming
gram.
up? Can we see you at the museum?
Well, I'm doing lots of classes online. I'm doing a meditation retreat this weekend. And so on my website, worksofanaise.com, there's always classes going on that people can sign up for. And I think I got some events coming up in February in NYC.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you there.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time today. Everyone, please go follow Anne. And thank you for sharing your journey, for being so vulnerable, and for creating the space for future folks who I'm sure will learn from this. Thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting me into this space. It was so nice to talk to you. It was a great conversation.